When you're scrolling through a lab equipment catalog, it's easy to get caught up in the glossy photos and the promise of high throughput or perfect balance. I've seen a lot of scientists order a microplate rotor because the listing shows a sleek, compact unit that looks like it will spin a full 96-well plate with no fuss, only to discover that it doesn't fit the plates they already own, or that the rotor wobbles just enough to make the centrifuge trip an alarm. That frustration is real, and it's why I wanted to dive into the Scilogex 194006296-well microplate rotor before anyone else wastes time or money on something that might not meet the day-to-day demands of a busy lab. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. First off, let's talk about the core need this piece of equipment tries to solve. In any molecular biology workflow that involves PCR, ELISA, or cell-based assays, you end up with dozens of 96-well plates that need to be spun down quickly, whether you're pelleting cells, removing bubbles, or simply getting the contents to settle uniformly before reading. A two-place rotor, like the one Scilogex offers, promises to handle 2 plates at once, theoretically cutting the centrifugation step in half and keeping your protocol timing tight. The dimensions listed 123 mm by 86 mm match the footprint of a standard 96-well plate, which is reassuring because many lower-cost rotors I've seen in the past either require a custom adapter or force you to use a slightly smaller plate, leading to wasted wells or awkward fits. From a practical standpoint, the first thing you'll notice when you unload the box is the simplicity of the design. There are no extra clamps, no adjustable brackets, just a solid aluminum frame that the plates snap into. For labs that rotate staff frequently, that minimal learning curve is a real time saver. You place a plate into one of the 2 slots, make sure the holes line up with the rotor's pins, and you're ready to load it into your centrifuge. The fact that the rotor holds 2 plates at once means you can process a 192-well batch in the time it would normally take to spin a single plate, which can be a noticeable efficiency boost in high throughput screening pipelines. That said, the design also introduces a couple of hidden trade-offs. Because the rotor is built to accommodate 2 plates simultaneously, the overall weight is a bit higher than a single-well version. In practice, this means you need a centrifuge that can handle the extra load without hitting its maximum speed limit. If you're using an older benchtop model that tops out at, say, 2,000 revolutions per minute with a single plate, you might find yourself forced to reduce the speed when you load both plates, potentially extending the spin time. I've spoken with a few colleagues who ran into this exact scenario. They liked the throughput but had to adjust their protocols to keep the balance within the centrifuge's tolerance. It's not a fatal flaw, but it's something you should verify with your equipment specs before you order. Another practical nuance is the balance of the 2 plates. The rotor's pins are positioned to match the standard well geometry, but if you load plates of different densities, perhaps one full of cells and another mostly buffer, you'll introduce an imbalance that can cause vibration. The best practice, which I've seen recommended in several SOPs, is to keep the contents as symmetrical as possible or to run a quick pre-spin with a dummy plate to check the balance. In my experience, labs that adopt a consistent workflow always loading plates in pairs with similar volumes avoid any hiccups, whereas occasional users who only need the rotor for a one-off experiment sometimes run into wobble and have to rebalance manually. Who should consider buying the Scilogex 194000062? If your lab runs 96-well plates on a daily basis, especially for protocols that involve multiple spin steps, you'll likely appreciate the time saved by handling 2 plates at once. Think of a core facility that offers ELISA or high-content screening services. The ability to double the throughput without adding extra centrifugation cycles translates directly into more samples processed per day. Also, if you have a centrifuge that already advertises a 2-plate capacity and you're looking for a cost-effective rotor that fits the standard plate dimensions, this model hits the sweet spot. On the flip side, if you only spin a few plates a week, or if your centrifuge has strict weight or speed limits, the extra bulk of a dual-slot rotor could end up being more hassle than help. Small research groups that primarily work with 24 or 48 well plates, or those that use a microcentrifuge for low-volume spins, would find more value in a single-plate rotor or even a manual hand-spinning device. In those cases, the Scilogex rotor's two-place advantage becomes a marginal benefit that doesn't outweigh the potential need to adjust centrifuge settings or compromise on spin speed. Now, let's talk about where the value actually comes from. The headline spec 96 wells, two places sounds impressive, but the real money-saving element is the reduction in Hansen time. In a typical